Hello, everyone. Sarah here. Today, we're going to be diving into the top signs of Cptsd. And for some, that stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Some, it stands for childhood post-traumatic stress disorder. Regardless of what the C means to you, it generally represents chaotic, confusing, conflicting, and it's a result of post-trauma. And some actually go as far as to receive the diagnosis from a practitioner, but are just left with a diagnosis. They're not left with a solution. So we're going to be diving into the signs and symptoms of Cptsd today. But most importantly, getting to the very core and the very root of what caused these signs and symptoms is what gives you the ability to be free from these signs and symptoms. And that we do together. I have a free masterclass on my training, Transforming Past Pain to Present Power. And in that, you're going to learn about, see, connect with, and relate to the archetypes of the emotionally abused and neglected. More than likely, you already understand how it's impacting, affecting, and influencing your life. So this video, if you do already experience these signs and symptoms, is just going to provide validation, reassurance, and hopefully some insight into what to do if you're tired of reading more about it, if you're tired of taking the medications that you're taking, if you're tired of reading more self-help books, if you're trying to figure it out on your own because you're stuck and you're tired of being stuck and living inside that box, using the power of your unconscious mind to quickly get to the very core and the very root of what causes these signs and symptoms is one of the most powerful and effective tools that I have found in working with clients to set them on a much better trajectory and path, one that leads to freedom instead of one that leads to being stuck inside of another box. So there are experiences that have become a part of who we are, that have created our identity, and those have structured the internal beliefs that we have about ourselves that have become programmed in our subconscious mind that are now being displayed outward. So we're going to dive into the different things that you may be noticing, feeling, and experiencing in your life. And these come from the clients that I've worked with in the past who have a range and a variety of these different experiences. And it really, truly all comes down to what's going on within you. Signs and symptoms are expressions of what's going on within you, the identity that you believe yourself to have, and the limitations that that creates on your life. So the first one is that you'll notice you feel separate. You feel separate from other people. You feel separate from other groups. Let's say you're in a certain age range. Let's pick on 30s, and you feel completely separate from everyone else in their 30s because everyone else in their 30s seems to be married, having kids, starting families, like be well into their career, doing what you're supposed to do, and you're not doing that. There are certain things going on within you that you don't want to do that, or you're afraid to do that, or you desire to do that, but you feel unable to. And you feel unexplainably separate. It feels like you're an outsider looking in, like you're an observer, kind of watching all the other people in that particular group, or you just feel that you don't fit in and you don't belong at all. So many people who experience early trauma, childhood trauma, or complex trauma, they have this feeling, this inner experience of feeling separate, feeling disconnected, feeling isolated, and feeling alone. And this is all to do with the unconscious belief system that you have that you don't fit in, you don't belong because of those early experiences. This shows up all the time when I'm working with clients, and believing there's a subconscious belief that what you went through and what you experienced in experiencing that separation, isolation, and loneliness was your fault, that you're inherently flawed and that you did something wrong, you did something to deserve it. When you didn't receive the love, the admiration, the connection, and the attention that your soul longed for, craved, wanted, and needed when you were a little child, there was a separation that was developed and formed, and you subconsciously adopted, accepted, and took on this belief and have been carrying this belief with you throughout your life that something's wrong with you. that you don't fit in and you don't belong. And so now it feels like you're living your life from the outside looking in. So early childhood trauma impacts the ability and the development of the brain, specifically the subconscious part of the brain, because it takes on and adopts these particular beliefs about itself. It leaves emotional wounds. It creates emotional wounds. It leaves invisible scars. And those are the things that later on in life we feel sadness, we feel isolation, we feel loneliness, we feel depression. And then we have thoughts that match and mirror that, and we have actions that follow those thoughts, where we won't put ourselves in social situations because we feel awkward, we feel scared, we feel panicked, we feel our bodies physically responding to those thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And with this, it can be very, very confusing to understand, because logically you understand you're not in those situations anymore. When you are in those situations, no one is hurting you, no one is saying anything bad about you, but your mind is telling a different story. It's like there's a different movie playing in your mind than the ones that you're seeing with your eyes out there. So another sign, symptom, experience that you may have if you are living with CPTSD, childhood post-traumatic stress disorder, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, are the health problems that you have. Your body has these unexplainable health problems and conditions. You have gone to doctors, you've gotten tests, you've gotten blood work done, and it comes back normal, it comes back fine. They can't see the connection and the correlation, and you know that your body is feeling and experiencing and going through these things, yet the test results are not in alignment, they're not matching, they're not giving you any clear, concise answers as to why. And that's one of the biggest questions that everyone has. Why is this happening? Why am I feeling this? Why is my body doing this when I get around people? Why do I have panic attacks? These people are my friends, these people are that I work with, that I grew up with. There's no real reason for me to be afraid or to have an attack or to feel panic. Yet when I go out, when I go to the grocery store, I have panic attacks. When I just go to my friend's house and there's someone new there, like a friend brought a friend and I don't know that person, I suddenly want to lock myself in the bathroom. I have this panic attack and anxiety attack, and your mind goes into hyperdrive and overdrive. What are they thinking about me? What are they saying about me? Did they just look at me like that? I just heard them laughing. Were they laughing at me? Oh my God, is it, I knew I shouldn't have come. And you get stuck and constantly going into this downward spiral. And that leads you to perhaps doing other things that you don't want to do. We'll get into later, addictive patterns and behaviors. It leads to massive headaches, chronic migraines. Your body begins to physically respond, and all you're doing is just hanging out with people that you know logically and consciously there's no reason to fear them, that you're safe with them, that nothing is going to happen. Nothing does happen when you hang out with them. But every time you spend time with them, you get massive headaches and chronic migraines. And so you go to the doctor to figure out why you're having these massive headaches and chronic migraines, and they don't know, they can't figure it out. And so they leave you with, well, here's prescription, I don't know, try this. Or you begin to self-medicate, or you begin to isolate and try and avoid those situations altogether. So you will notice that you have unexplained health problems that don't really have a correlation or a logical cause to the reasons why. Perhaps these are things that are flaring up within you, and they're not things that are in other members of your family. And you go on this hunt and quest to try and figure out again why. This leads to the next archetype of what I dive into in my free masterclass. It's about an hour and a half. We go into the 5 top archetypes of the emotionally traumatized, abused, and manipulated. So when you watch that, if you choose to, if you feel called to, you'll hear more about this and the stuffer bottler archetype. People who experience CPTSD, they notice that they have this unexplainable excess weight, or they struggle with overeating, they struggle with over drinking, they struggle with addiction because they're trying to fill what they don't want to feel. Early childhood trauma, childhood PTSD can impact and influence you in many, many ways, specifically in the areas and ways of feeling safe to feel your feelings. You do not feel safe to feel your feelings. You were taught not to feel that feeling, or to experience shame in feeling that feeling. And so now when you begin to feel that feeling, you feel the compounded emotion of shame and guilt and regret and neglect. And I'm not supposed to feel that feeling. Don't go there, but you feel and you notice your body going there. So now there's this inner war and battle going on. And so to distract or numb or try and mute or quiet those emotions and that feeling, you reach for something outside of you. Perhaps it comes at a time where you're in a conflict or argument with someone. I see this a lot with people that I work with who, over the last couple of years, I began working on at home. And even in the workplace now, they will take a break and go stuff their face. And those are their words. I take a break and then I go stuff my face because I just like my hands, they get really tight and clenched. And I can't punch my coworker or colleague, and I'm not going to. I wouldn't do that, but it's like my hands get really tense. And in order to relax them, I reach into a bag of chips. And instead of eating a few, right, I find that I finish the whole thing and then I'm not even hungry, but I just like, I need something to do with my hands, or I get these cravings for certain things. And we never get cravings for carrots. We never get cravings for lettuce, because early trauma just alters that. It alters and changes the way that our body is designed to function and work efficiently and with fluidity. So we find that we are craving things or reaching for things even when we don't really want them. And we logically know I'm not hungry, but it's like we can't stop. So we find that we crave certain foods. I've had clients in the past that say, like, every time I would drive home, I know I would get home and I would need to make dinner. And I didn't want to like leave my family eating by themselves, even though I wasn't hungry, because I actually stopped for ice cream on the way home. And I don't know why. And now I'm experiencing my body putting on this excess weight. A lot of it has an unconscious link to not feeling protected. And so when we put on protection, we put on this armor, we put on this shield, we do it oftentimes in the form of a physical presence to physically protect ourselves where we feel unprotected emotionally. So that's another sign and symptom. You may experience that your body is not at a healthy ideal weight, and the cravings that you have and the things that you do to use food, alcohol, or other substances are generally to numb and run, as I call it, or to avoid the feelings so you fill your body with other things externally. This also leads to drugs and alcohol, the belief that you can't go to sleep until you wind down with a glass of wine. I've had clients in the past say, I wind down, WINE, and after working together, after just a couple of sessions, find that they can enjoy cocktails or drinks if they want to, if they feel like it, but they no longer do it in excess or abundance. They do it on the weekends when they're going out to dinner with friends or family. It's not something that they do every night now. So A, they're saving a lot of money. B, they're sleeping better, because all of that has a really high sugar intake, which impacts your ability to sleep and the depth of sleep which you receive. But they find that prior to getting to the core, the root of it, and what's happening internally, subconsciously, their body is in this dysregulated cycle and system. They find that at 2 o'clock, they start thinking about when they get off work at 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, they start thinking about and almost literally salivating or craving that drink that they're going to have before they're making dinner, as they're making dinner, after dinner, a post drink. It's like they have to have this. And this is a sign that your body is in a state of dysregulation. And the body is in a high state of dysregulation when it's experiencing the signs and symptoms of CPTSD. So this also leads to feelings of and so signs and symptoms of anxiety, like we talked about before, panic attacks, depression, other mental health problems and issues. And these are all associated with trauma. Notice the T in CPTSD, post-traumatic. So it's a traumatic event. Generally, I say it's compounded, it's complex, it's big ones, it's little ones, it's all of them mixed in together, and the experience that they're having on the subconscious beliefs you have about yourself. So in an effort to try and understand, again, the question of why, you go to someone outside of you who understands more than you, but no one understands you better than you do. It just takes the right tool and the right way to access what's truly going on within you. And that access and the most powerful method and tool is through your own mind, your subconscious mind, not using things outside of you, but connecting to that part of you within you. So another sign and symptom is that you'll find that you are attracted to, and I talk about this a lot in my work, you are attracted to highly destructive and very toxic people. The word narcissist is out there in this world to describe a person or a group of persons, right? Narcissists with a particular set of patterns and behaviors. We all have a particular set of patterns, habits, and behaviors, but you find that there are things within you that are attracted to people with this personality type. My background, my experience, I was married to a covert. And then after that, 3 weeks after that relationship, marriage ended, found myself in a relationship with a malignant. There are different types of narcissists. This video is not about that today, but you find it's you're the common denominator. You are the one attracted to them, people like that, people with narcissistic traits, tendencies, behaviors. And this is not because you're a bad person. It's because you have subconscious beliefs about yourself. Your inner voice is destructive, is toxic, is chaotic, is beating you up emotionally, mentally, spiritually, verbally. You were doing that to yourself, and you're energetically and magnetically attracted to people who feel familiar. The body loves what's familiar. The mind loves what's familiar. It feels like, oh, this, okay, I know this. I've got this. I know this. But those types of relationships cause so much stress. They cause an even more dysregulated nervous system. It causes your judgment to be off. And we get into this as part of the gaslighter archetype that I talk about in my free masterclass and training. Your own mind begins to gaslight you. You have someone outside of you that you're in a relationship with who's also gaslighting you. So no wonder you feel completely off, disassociated, disconnected, because you have no idea which way is up, which way is down. And you look around and it's just this, how did I get here? But you find that you're attracted to that pattern, to that behavior. It almost becomes an addiction to those types of relationships. So there's a high level of people who are still experiencing the signs and symptoms of CPTSD, who find that they engage and stay in very toxic, destructive, narcissistic relationships. So again, when you get to the very core and root of what's going on internally and subconsciously, you begin to unpack this, you begin to smooth it out, figure it out. It finally begins to make sense, and you quote unquote figure out why. So there's so much depth to that question, and you'll find that it's a really difficult one to answer consciously, because you can't consciously understand what's happening unconsciously. They're two separate parts of the mind. But you'll notice a lot of fears come up. This is another sign and symptoms. You're constantly living in a state of fear, in a state of hypervigilance. The amygdala in your brain is open, and it's sending out all those chemicals and all those senses to your body going, trouble, right? Trauma, stay away, red flag, alert. And it's like we've learned to numb and avoid and mute that part of us while we're living with it open. So we're experiencing the sensations of the fear in our body, and the fears are deeply rooted. The fears of being alone, the fears of being rejected, the fears of being abandoned. And those cause us to stay in relationships where there's this constant tension of, are you going to leave me? And if you leave me, I'm going to be alone for a bit because you told me that no one's ever going to love me the way that you love me. And you've told me that I'm never going to find anyone better than you. And what if that's true? So we stay in this because we fear deeply those very things. So those are the very things that have us play this yo-yo game of breaking up and getting back together and saying it's over, and then no, we're going to work it out, it's okay, we're going to work through it. That's what real love is all about. And that's not love, that's abuse. And you find that you're not in a loving relationship with yourself when you're living with the signs and symptoms of CPTSD. You're living with an abusive relationship that you have with yourself, and it doesn't make sense. You can't figure it out, and you don't understand why. But part of what's going on are those deeply rooted subconscious fears, not just the conscious ones. You can understand, yeah, I have a fear of being alone, but you don't understand the depth or the length of that root and the width of that root. It is something that happened. It's like a seed that was planted in childhood. And from that, it grew tall, it grew big, and it grew strong. And over time, it continued to grow other roots. And now it feels like it just has a hold on you. It feels impossible to pull up and out consciously, because you can't consciously understand what's going on subconsciously. But that's what's going on subconsciously, is you have the deeply rooted fears of rejection, abandonment, betrayal. Being alone is one of the greatest ones. And all of those fears, when watered, right, when continuously experienced, lead to the panic, lead to the anxiety, lead to the sadness, lead to the depressive episodes, lead to the angry outbursts that you experience. So it is so imperative and important to get to the core and root of what is going on subconsciously, internally, because this not only affects one thing, it affects everything. It affects everything about your life, every area of your life, your health, your wealth, your relationships, everything. So you'll find, if you're still living with signs and symptoms of CPTSD, that you perhaps have developed social anxiety, you avoid social engagements, you find that you don't get invited to things as often, because when you do, you maybe say yes, but then later you no show, or you say you can't go, and you feel like, I really want to go, but I can't be around people. You get this like, oh my God, I can't go because it's just too much. It's just too much. It's too triggering when I'm around people, whether it's people I know or people I don't know. It just seems to be too much. It's too overwhelming. I don't like the sounds of other things. I don't like crowds. I don't like people. I hate the small talk. Because your soul and your heart really long for deep emotional connection. And so when you're around social situations and other people, and you're engaging in a small talk kind of way, you feel like they don't even know me. And there's a part of you that says, well, of course, if they knew the real you, what do you think they would think about you? You would never be invited or joined to come back. So this shows up in all of your relationships. So whether you're, hanging out with friends, whether you're dating, it shows up in your relationship. If you're married, it impacts every relationship that you have. When you experience being around people is just too much. This can impact your ability to go to support groups, connect with support groups, and maybe you feel safer online because you've got the protection of a screen. So you long for that connection, yet you fear the connection at the same time. That's the disconnection. You fear the very thing that you long for. So that's a sign and symptom of CPTSD as well. Another one is high conflict, high internal conflict, high external conflict. That leads to dysregulation. And you find this even though you have coworkers and you have friends and you have family members, because you have such a high internal conflict that is expressed, displayed, projected outward, and impacts your interactions, engagements with other people. So you find that you're in high conflict with other people in your life. And this has to do with a lot of things. You were modeled certain behaviors and actions, and the ones that were modeled that led to traumatic experiences were not one of working things out, of calm compromise. They were ones of arguing to get your point across. Someone had to shut up, and someone had to just, if you even dared express how you feel, you were punished, you were belittled, you were sent to your room to be alone, to try and process these big emotions and feelings as a child. You weren't comforted, you weren't connected, you weren't loved, you weren't taught how to self-soothe or how to go through that. And so now you're self-harming, because at least that's a different feeling from what you're currently feeling. And so there's such dysregulation with communication, healthy, proper communication, where you have the ability to hear, to understand, to empathize, and to listen. And now your emotions and your feelings feel so big, they just blow up, and there's really high conflict because you were not taught and modeled how to regulate your own emotions in a proper way to have a calming conversation. And so now relationships just, you're burning bridges left and right. It's like you've got this torch and you're burning all the bridges. And now you're afraid to get really close to people because that could be more conflict. So now you keep an arm's distance, you keep a certain length, which in your mind feels safe. We can get this close, but that's it. I'm not letting you in any closer. I'm not letting you get any further, so we can be friends, but it's going to be with the space and separation between us. And your heart, your soul long for true, deep, meaningful connection. But early on in childhood, it wasn't modeled that, and now it doesn't feel safe to receive that, because the first people we long for that experience with are our parents. And generally, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, develops in early childhood, develops because of the relationship with our caregivers or with our parents. So because of that, we can just kind of talk about this. You may find that you explode in rage and anger. I've had people Ask, can you dive more into anger? Well, anger is an emotion. Anger is an experience. Anger is a feeling. You feel it inside your body. You can feel it like almost shooting out of your hands like fire when you're triggered. You can feel the heat in your chest. You can feel it impact your ability to speak. Sometimes the voice is loud, it's projective, or sometimes it feels like there's a lump in your throat when you feel the anger and you can't speak. And it feels like someone has shoved a rock down your throat. So intense emotions come out in many different ways, most commonly anger, rage. And that's again linked to the fear of criticism, the fear of being left out, the fear of being judged, the fear of being pressured, the fear of not having enough time. There's this time kind of pressure that you need to figure out now. I asked you, and your body is in such a dysregulated state, you need more time to process it. And so there's this misunderstanding, and that leads to very, very, very high levels of stress. And when you're stressed, you get angry, you project that outward. So all of your emotions are activated, and where emotions are high, logic is low. And so you can't even think because you're trying to use your logical mind to think, but your emotional mind will overrule the logical mind every single time. It's just the way the mind works. And it's very, very powerful. It's the way the subconscious mind works. Those emotions triggered, engaged, reacted, logic, done. So you find that you can't even think. And when you can't think, you get angry about it because you want to be able to process it and express it in a healthy way. But you were never modeled. And now you're being rushed, and now you're feeling judged, and now you're feeling pressured, and now you're feeling left out. And now you're feeling like, oh my God, what are they going to say about me? They're just going to go say horrible things about me. And so now there's this fear of criticism, and the fear of never being enough, and the fear of all the things. And so you react to that. And generally, they will call it an overreaction. And when your mind has time to calm down, you may agree with that. Yeah, you're right. I did overreact. And then you feel bad. And then shame and guilt comes in. And it's just a big, like, cauldron of all the stuff that you don't want. And you just want it to end. And you've been taught and modeled that's the fastest way to get something to end is to blow up, because then people leave, right? The flight trauma response kicks in for you, for them. You leave, done, over with. And then there's this awkward, maybe we don't talk for a couple days, come back together and like never talk about it ever again. So there's a lot going on. I know I've been through it all as well. I work with people who are ready to deeply and powerfully change the unconscious structure, programming, beliefs that they have about themselves. But before that, before you find yourself in that state, you might find yourself in a state where you feel completely checked out, numbed out. We go into this in the gaslighter archetype as well, the signs and symptoms and things that you experience, especially when it comes to understanding, processing, and talking about your feelings. You just, and that's what may lead to therapy or counseling, other modalities of trying to figure out why, to be very, very difficult, or feel like you're hitting a brick wall, or that you're just not getting anywhere and trying to understand yourself or figure out why, because you hear this person talking, but it triggers something from your past. You are being talked at, you're being told all the things, you're being pointed out all the things that are not correct or right with you. And so your mind just, or when you hear a certain tone, when you hear perhaps it's a man. I know that this happened to me in my past. It was like anytime a man would talk in a specific tone, done. Like I was there and doing a lot of this. My mind was somewhere off in like a far fairy tale land, a creative, imagining place, like somewhere I felt safe. And then, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Okay. And then would come back to, did you hear what I said? So you may notice that your mind does that. You space out, you numb out. It's like, I can't feel my body while you're talking. Maybe you feel physically numb, especially when it comes to, again, trying to figure out why, connect to your feelings, talk about your feelings, talk about situations. You'll notice that all of those experiences that you have. And this is because, again, inside your mind, it's like the whole system is like, no, shut down. We're not going to go there again. That's what's happening. And so you may notice that you space out, you numb out. especially when it comes to trying to figure this out and talk about your feelings. And this shows up a lot in the therapy counselor setting. I hear that a lot from clients I work with. I didn't get anywhere with traditional methods. And I just nod my head. I understand. I've experienced that as well. And that's because you were trying to figure out what is happening subconsciously with the conscious process. So it's very limiting because the body will go and throw up the gates. And then you feel like there's no key to unlock that gate. So we can sit here and talk as long as you want, but we're not getting through or onto the other side. So that leads to obviously struggling with memory, because when you're there, but you're not there, you're not aware, right? So when you're there, but you're not there, you're not aware. You're aware of where your mind goes, right? And this leads to being diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, because inside your mind, there's no deficit of attention. Oh, you are paying attention. You're paying attention to lots of things. You're paying attention to that, not. Oh, you're supposed to be focused, paying attention to here. Oh, sorry, what? And so you struggle with memory recall. You struggle with the ability to understand or to focus. You're focused on so many other things because your mind is looking for an escape. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of there. This doesn't feel safe to be here. So let me go over there. Oh, this feels better. This feels more safe. Oh, wait, what's that? Squirrel. And so you struggle with focus. You struggle with the ability to be present. And that's because you need to feel safe in order to be present. If you don't feel safe, your body is going to give you an escape. Bye. The flight trauma response kicks in. And so physically you're there, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, way out there. So your focus, your memory recall, your ability to keep attention on one particular thing for a certain amount of time is, and that's probably because when you were younger, you were shamed for not paying attention. And this can happen in the form of your parents punishing you, teachers punishing you. If you thought a little boy or little girl was like fun to play with next to you and you're not paying attention. Okay, I'm going to focus. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for recess. And I wonder what my mom packed me for lunch today. And so all of those are signs of safety. Your mind is giving you a safe out and escape. And you can look like you're paying attention all the while. You're just trying to avoid feeling and experiencing more shame because what you've already experienced was more than enough. So again, this leads to impacting your attention, your learning, your focus, your memory. And I mean, we all, especially in today's world and culture and society, especially with these things, and our attention spans have massively and incredibly shrunk. And this is a sign of CPTSD, and it's a sign of your body trying to keep you safe and keeping you safe by giving you an out, by engaging and activating that flight response. So again, when you do the inner work and you get to the very core and the very root of this, what's happening internally and subconsciously, then you can create real, powerful, impactful, lasting change. And then you can understand it in a way and have a true answer to the question of why, and then you begin to do something to change it. Because when it makes sense, it makes sense. And you may find that you're trying to have it all make sense, but really the only thing that's making sense right now are the signs and symptoms that I have and I'm experiencing. And again, you can't change things subconsciously with conscious effort. So got to use your subconscious mind, got to get to the very core and the root of it if you want to make any true, impactful, lasting change. That's what we do with our work together, whether it's one-to-one work together or whether it's you going through the program yourself and really getting a deep, powerful understanding of what's going on. So I would love to connect with you in regards to which one you feel like is best for you. I offer consultations as well, but either way, I hope you found this video on the signs and symptoms of CPTSD helpful and beneficial to you. But more than that, offering you a powerful solution to going within, to healing, to transforming, and to changing so that you can alleviate all of those things so that they are things that are where they belong, right? Things of the past, not things that are being pulled into your present and impacting your ability to fully be present and live an incredible life, the life that you deserve and desire today. So thank you guys. That is it for today's video. I'm sending you love and I look forward to connecting with you very soon. Bye.